Hey, you want it? I got it. Let's talk about it. Okay, Monday Night Raw. All right, I just got back from the show, and it was a pretty good one. But anyway, let's get into it. All right, started opening up with Paul Heyman, Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed. They come out to the ring, and Paul Heyman is starting to talk, and he's starting to talk, and he start off talking about with Braun Breaker, saying that he's an attack dog, he's a badass and everything, and he's true to the bloodline. As far as that fraction, I guess, is concerned, and the future is in his hands, and that if the Terminator, if the Skynet sent the Terminator down, it would be in the form, I guess, of Braun Breaker and everything. He's saying Braun Breaker is going to be, a main eventer at WrestleMania, and not just at WrestleMania, just at WrestleMania 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, and 50 and beyond and stuff. So I guess he's seeing a whole lot on Braun Breaker, but right now Braun Breaker's looking like a jobber. Why is he sitting in back behind Seth Rollins and everything? And then he leaves from Braun Breaker and he starts talking about Bronson Reed. Like Bronson Reed is, the powerhouse and everything. And he's a top tier guy, and he's been beating everybody, and that he beat Seth Rollins and tsunamied him a few times and stuff. So, and I guess that's why they picked him up, because he's been through the best of the best, and so he's supposed to take down whoever comes, to try to interrupt in their situation as far as where Seth Rollins is concerned. And then Seth Rollins, comes on and he's talking about that, you know, they're the vision of what wrestling is supposed to be and what it's coming to and stuff. So I don't know. I don't get it, because first of all, we have not seen or heard anything about why Paul Heyman is still with Seth Rollins, and what he did with CM Punk and Roman Reigns. Um, and it's just, it's a mess. It's a confusing mess. You got Braun Breaker, who should be out there. He should have been the one wrestling for a position in the Money in the Bank, but that's not the case. So we start off with our first match, which was Penta versus Chad Gable and Dragon Lee, which was a real fast, good match. A lot of great spots in that. Um, so I'm just gonna say that Penta won, and it was it was an interesting match. There was a lot of good, like I said, spots in there and stuff. So ultimately, Penta is going to be you know in Money in the Bank. So which is good for him. And then we had the Judgment Day segment with Roxanne Perez giving Dom some chicken nuggets, and as he's giving him the chicken nuggets, ooh, Liv Morgan is back. And I don't think she was very happy. She gives, Dom, you know, um, some words, some choice words and everything. And Dom is trying to play it off, Um, and then she said, because Dom was going to tell her, what's, been going on. She said, don't worry about it, because Raquel has been telling me what's been happening, with Judgment Day, and that she would deal with him later. So, but it was, it was good. It was good, to see Liv back. So I'm glad that she's back and stuff. And then, Pat McAfee and Michael Cole, they gave a salute to, the men and women who gave their lives, in the service for this country to be free, for us to be free. So hats off, rest in peace for those people who have served our country and died for this country to make this country great and to make us stay free. So, but anyway, then we have the squash match. It didn't last 1 minute. It was Sawa against Rusev, and Rusev destroyed him. And then at the end of the match, Rusev was like he didn't want to let go. It's like he was gonna kill him and everything. And then out comes Sheamus, and then they have this big stare down. I'm sure words were exchanged and everything. And then as the stare down continued, um, Rusev just walks off. So I'm thinking that there's going to be something down the road between Rusev and Sheamus. So hopefully they'll build it good and everything, and probably they'll have the match at Money in the Bank. Who knows? But we'll see. And then we had New Day versus the War Raiders and the Creed Brothers, which we've already seen before and everything. These guys have already been in the ring with each other for a lot of times. The New Day wins, which was great and stuff. They won the belts, even though he was Kobe Kingston was holding the trunks and stuff. They still won, so that was a heel thing, which was good. They grabbed their belts and they took off, so that was good. It's kind of hard to really keep everything in capture, especially if you're going live and stuff. At the live event. And man, so I'm just trying to throw this together um, the best way that I can and stuff. And then Sammy in his segment, was saying that he should have went out there when Seth Rollins at the beginning of the show was out there with Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. And the Usos said, for what? It'll be 3-on-1 and everything. He said that they have to be smart on doing things and stuff. And they have to bring the battle, basically to them. They have to be control of what's going on as far as the battle, with Seth Rollins, Bronson Reed, that fashion and stuff like that with them. And then Jay continued tell him that look, in the match that he's going to have for qualifying for the Money in the Bank, to pay attention to that and everything, because if he gets Money in the Bank and wins, then he has a shot at a title and stuff. So but Sammy, Sammy is Sammy and stuff. But anyway, it wasn't anything that Jay wasn't telling them, that wasn't true. you know um So Jay basically told him that whatever happens, that he has his back. So, and went on to that, and then we have Liv and Raquel talking and everything, and then they run into Io Sky and Kairi Sane and stuff, and so there was a challenge there from Kairi Sane to Liv Morgan, and that match came later on, in the segment. I mean, in the show, you know, and then Jay Uso comes out. He's shooting a promo. Then Gunther comes out. And they have words. Basically, Gunther's congratulating Jay Uso for his 15 years as being a Uso. And the things that they've done. As far as him and Jimmy and stuff. And then he's giving him his praise again as being champion and successfully defending his title. For the first time when he defended it. Against Logan Paul and won. But then Gunther says that, when he goes at him, it would be like last time they have that belt. But, Jey Uso, told me like, bring it on, you know, 4 letters, one word, yeet, which is crazy. But anyway, and so then Liv Morgan and Kyrie Sane, they have their match and stuff. Actually, and that match was a pretty decent match also. I'm not going to complain about the match because it was good. There was nothing really messed up about the match and everything. It turned out to be pretty good, some good spots in there. Maybe a couple of things that were missed and stuff, but other than that, it was a good match. And as the match progressed, um, Roxanne Perez gets on the rope as Kyrie climbs the corner and then pushes Kyrie saying off the top belt buckle. And then Roxanne Perez tries to interfere also and everything. And then at the time that Roxanne and Raquel out there arguing alongside the ring, Liv Morgan is watching them. Kyrie Sane rolls her up and pins her. So Kyrie wins that match. And then we get to Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch was a real good promo also. It kind of seemed like though when Lyra was talking, it was kind of more like she was reading off a script, but it was still good. Becky Lynch carried it through and stuff, and really made some good stuff. And Lyra saying how she beat her and stuff like that, and then Becky is like, look, you know, if I beat you, you have to raise my hand. But I guess Lyra is like, look, I've beaten you all. I've beaten a lot of women and raised their hands, but you're not one of them because you haven't beaten me and stuff. And I thought that was pretty cool because she dropped the mic and that was it, And Becky was looking kind of crazy and everything, but Becky was telling her also too that if Lyra wins, that she'll stop challenging for that title and leave her alone, or so much so for or whatever. And then we move on to another segment because there was a lot of segments in this show and stuff. It seemed like then you have Sami Zayn and Karrion Cross. And Karrion tells Sami that he will never win the championship. Which is crazy. To tell somebody that. And then Sami comes back and tells Karrion Cross, "I'll deal with you later." And then we get ready for the triple threat as far as the qualification for the Money in the Bank, which was Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, and Sami Zayn. The match was good. It was really exciting and stuff. There was a lot of spots. It was fast. It was good. They did this one spot where everybody, did a little finisher and stuff. Then Dom comes out. He tries to throw a chair to Finn Balor and everything, and then Finn Balor ends up getting stomped. He ends up getting stomped and loses the match and stuff because Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker come out, interfere in the match, and then CM Punk comes. No, Jey Uso comes out, and then he flies across. He just came out of nowhere, flies across on Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. They started fighting. Boom, boom. And then here comes CM Punk right behind because the music popped, everybody popped, and Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed went up the aisle to go look to stop CM Punk to coming down. He shows up from behind Seth Rollins and puts him to sleep, and then runs out of the ring and stuff. And Braun Breaker, they're all just trying to get to CM Punk. He's out of the ring. Seth Rollins wins the match. He's going to Money in the Bank. And that was the end of the show. The show was a pretty good show. It was, it was quick. It was nice. Wasn't really boring and stuff. The segments were long, but like I said, I was there live, so I don't know what the commercials and everything were on. When I came back, I put the show on just to try to take some notes and stuff and try to get something out. But that's the recap on Raw. Thank you for watching. God bless you. Deuces. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, hit that bell. and I'll see you on the next video. Deuces.